Looks like they revealed the 4 stars on Emily's banner finally. Let's see who we have this time. Oh. Oh no. Not her again. So let's talk about 4 stars. But first, some statistics. This is already Xiangling's third banner in the version 4 era of Genshin. The first one, in 4.2, she shared with Kuki Shinobu, a character a lot of players want, but she hasn't been seen since. And remember this guy? He has a banner right now. It's his first rerun and he had to wait for it for over a year. He was originally released in 3.6 alongside Baiju, who already got 2 reruns before Kave even got 1. Wait a minute, aren't 4 stars supposed to be easier to get than 5 stars? If you asked Toyoverse that, the answer would probably be yesn't. But let's not compare 4 stars to 5 stars, instead let's take a look at this guy. His name is Bennett. You might have seen him before. Wanna know how many banners he had in the time it took Kave to get 1 single rerun? 3. All of them in the version 4 era. You know who didn't have a single banner in version 4? This guy. His name is Hazo, in case you forgot. Haven't seen him in a while. So let's talk about some other characters who had several banners since 4.0. Noelle had 3. Beidou, Chingchou, Ningguang, Baba, Rosaria, Yanfei, Toma, Dori, Fauzan, Kirara, and Gaming all had 2. Notice something? Yep. Over half of them are from 1.0, or from the version 1 era in general, like Rosaria and Yanfei. Meanwhile, a lot of the characters with only 1 or 0 banners in version 4 are characters released from Inazuma onwards, like the already mentioned Kuki Shinobu, or Candace, Yunjin, Yao Yao, to just name a few. But even more weird is that even some of the new Fontaine characters haven't gotten a rerun yet, despite Natlan being just around the corner. I'm mainly talking about Charlotte and Chefrus, and I'm convinced that Lynette and Fremine only got their rerun because they wanted to make this a House of Hearth banner. Otherwise, they probably still would be waiting, much like Charlotte and Chefrus. So after hearing all this, it's pretty evident that the way 4 stars are distributed on these banners is very, let's just say, inconsistent. Oftentimes the 4-star choices on a banner make little to no sense, and that is only the beginning of the issue, sadly. Because if you talk about difficult to obtain 4-star characters, we have to talk about the 3 characters that are locked to the standard banner: Kea, Lisa, and Amber. In case you don't know, these 3 characters are never on the character banner. The only way to obtain constellations for them is through the standard banner or the shop, but we'll get to the shop later. So here we have the next problem. The chance to get the exact 4-star you want from the standard banner is extremely low, because the existing pool of 4 stars is pretty large at this point, and it's only getting bigger because every new 4-star is added to it one update after the initial release. So currently, there are 39 4-star characters in the standard banner. But then there's also weapons, and from what I understand how this banner works, there's about a 50-50 chance to get either a character or a weapon. So basically you have to win the 50-50 for a character first, and then you have a 1 in 39 chance to get the character you want, making it effectively a 1 in 78 chance, which is 1.28%. And that is just ridiculously low. But it's a standard banner, so you shouldn't roll for specific 4-stars there anyway, right? That's what the character banners are for, right? But as I just explained, the characters are very unevenly distributed on the character banners. So this creates the issue of certain characters, not just Kea, Lisa, and Amber, being unreasonably hard to obtain, oftentimes even harder than most 5-star characters, even though 4-stars are supposed to be easier to get than 5-stars. And that is what I call the 4-star paradox, and it's, in my opinion, a very serious problem that just simply should not exist. But, well, there is one other option to get certain 4-star characters, like Lisa, for example. You can go to the shop and purchase her for 34 star glitter there, but only twice a year. So if you don't get any copies from the gacha, it takes 3 years to C6 a character, or even 3.5 years if you don't already have C0. But the shop isn't really meant to be your sole source of constellations, it's just there to help getting them a little bit faster, but doesn't even really do that, because all of the characters available in the shop are from 1.0. And as we just established a few minutes ago, these characters are on banners all the time anyway. Meanwhile, the characters who are rarely on the gacha are also not available from the shop because those are the newer characters. So aside from Kea, Lisa, and Amber, the shop doesn't really help much. But, well, in the end, you just have to be patient, right? Every 4-star is gonna come back for a rerun eventually. Even Kaveh was let out of jail in the end. So let's say it's finally time. Your favorite Forster character finally got a rerun. And all you got to do now is use all those juicy Primogems you saved up over the last few months to roll for them. So that's exactly what you do. You roll, and you roll, and you roll, and you get this Forster, and that Forster, and some weapons in between, and suddenly gold. A 5-star! Congratulations, you have reached soft pity. But wait a minute. What about that Forster you were actually aiming for? How many copies of them did you get? 0? What sounds like a pretty unlikely scenario is sadly something that a lot of players have experienced, including myself. Because here we have the next issue with 4-stars, the lack of guarantee. You're guaranteed one of the 3 4-stars on the character banner every 20 pulls. 1 out of 3. A nice 33.3% chance to get who you want. Sounds nice, right? But on the flip side, there's also a 66.6% chance to not get the character you want. And that is also quite a high number. And no matter how much you wish, no matter how many Primogems you pour into a banner, there's absolutely no guarantee whatsoever that you will ever hit that 33% instead of the 66%. Of course, statistically, it is unlikely that you go like 100 pulls or even more without a single copy of your desired 4-star. But tell that to my C2 Bubber on my old account who decided to not show up when I did 107 pulls on the Nuvelet banner in 4.5. And that is exactly the problem. While it is unlikely, it can still happen. And it shouldn't, because it makes no sense that getting a single copy of your targeted 4-star takes longer than getting a 5-star. So once again, this is the 4-star paradox. Even though they're easier to obtain in theory because of the lack of an actual guarantee, they could be infinitely harder to obtain than a 5-star. So what all of that shows is basically that there are just way too many hurdles we have to jump over just to get a single copy of a desired 4-star. And it seriously cannot stay like that. I've been saying that for years, but I still haven't given up hope that someday the devs will change something about this scuffed and unfair 4-star system for the better. So let's talk about some possible changes that I think would solve the 4-star paradox without making rolling for 4-stars on the character banner completely redundant. Because Huivos has to say these characters somehow, right? The solution can't be just give them to us for free. That's never gonna happen, aside from like an event character every once in a while. We have to be realistic here. So now the first thing that I think they should do, and actually should have done a long time ago, is adding more characters to the shop. It's something so simple and so obvious, yet they've never actually updated the shop. Instead, it's still the exact same as in version 1.0. By now, we have so much more characters than in 1.0 that it really doesn't make sense to not add some of them to the shop. They wouldn't even have to do it immediately. It's like fine if they wait for a year or two after release of a character before they add them. But they should still be added eventually. What I mean is that, for example, they could have added the Inazuma 4-stars to the shop at like the end of Sumeru, and then the Sumeru 4-stars at the end of Fontaine, and so on. So new 4-stars would still stay Gacha exclusive for a while, before being available in the shop, where they also would only be available once every 6 months, like it already is in the shop, so it wouldn't really break the gacha, but would make it easier to get constellations for certain characters, and also would make it easier for newer players to catch up to longtime players in terms of constellations. There's just no reason to not put newer 4-stars in the shop, which makes it even weirder that it hasn't already happened, and I really don't understand that, and I don't think I ever will. The second solution I want to talk about influences the gacha a bit more directly. You know how we have this thing called the epitomized path on the weapon banner? In my opinion, they should implement something like this for the 4-star characters in the character banner, so that you can choose one of the 3 and then have a guarantee to get them after you got a few different 4-stars first. Because like I said before, the biggest problem is the lack of guarantee. The gacha rates themselves are fine, so if we could just get a fate points and then be guaranteed to get the 4-star we want, we would still have to roll a bit for them. So it wouldn't stop us from spending Primogems or even money, but it would be much less frustrating. And you don't want your players to be frustrated, right? I mean, I know some people who've dropped the game literally because they didn't get their desired character from the gacha. So shouldn't it be in the interest of the company to make sure this doesn't happen so that players stay and continue playing? But anyway, I think a good number of fate points needed for the guarantee would be 3, so 1 more than in the weapon banner. since we are just talking about 4 stars here, not 5 stars. This effectively means that worst case you'd have to do 40 wishes to get your targeted 4 star. And I think 40 is a fair number, because soft pity for 5 stars starts at 75, and usually it does take around 80 pulls to get one 5 star, give or take. So by needing 3 fate points, it will basically make it so you get 2 of your desired 4 star in the same amount of pulls it takes to get one 5 star. And I think that's a good balance for a system like that. You don't want to make it too easy to get them, but also not so hard that it's more likely to get a 5 star first. And yeah, with just those 2 simple changes, more 4 stars in the shop and epitomized path for 4 star characters, the 4 star paradox would pretty much be solved, with only minimal financial impact, if even any financial impact at all for Hoyoverse, but a big positive impact on player satisfaction, which in the long run will result in more money for the company, right? So the way I see it, it would be a win-win situation for both sides if they improved the 4 star system in some way, shape, or form. Even if they don't do exactly what I suggest in this video, because let's be real, they probably won't, I still hope that something happens in the next few months, over the next few updates. Maybe in Natlan, hopefully. We've gotten a lot of good quality of life updates lately, so yeah, maybe they will also improve on the gacha at some point, or give us some other way to get certain 4 star characters. And yeah, if you've made it to this point in the video, tell me what you think about the way 4 stars are handled in Genshin, and what you would do to make it better. And if you enjoyed listening to me ramble about this issue, then maybe consider leaving a like on this video and subscribing to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. And with that being said, have a nice day.